You're listening to episode 60, Dafne's story, a son with type 1 diabetes and a daughter with autoimmune disease. Hi, and welcome to the Child Life On Call podcast. When your child is sick, the whole world seems to stop in its tracks. Plans and priorities change, and your number one job becomes figuring out how to get your child well again. For some of us, rest, medications, and relaxation can do the trick. But for others, it takes more. It takes countless doctor appointments, invasive medical testing, therapy, surgeries, the list goes on, and then you still may not have all of the answers or results you were hoping for. This podcast features parents of children that have an illness or medical condition and gives them a place to share their own journeys and experiences. We will talk about the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, but one thing seems to remain the same. Children are resilient and teach us more about ourselves and the world than we could ever imagine. Thank you so much for lending a listening ear and opening up your heart to these families and this podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor.
I would literally go to my room and shut myself in and just bawl my eyes out. Give me 5 minutes to bawl my eyes out that my son's life is so unfair and he's so little and he shouldn't have to be doing this and I shouldn't have to be doing this. And, I'd spend a little time praying, getting my thoughts back right, and then wipe my face off, and I was good to go.
Hello, my friends. The past couple of weeks has been bananas, to say the least. I am still not fully recovered or over the emotional trauma of the Texas ice storm we had a couple weeks ago when our little state, not so little state, turned into a third world country without electricity and running water. And honestly, in times like these, after the initial shock kind of wears off, and I think we saw this in the pandemic too, I just love how social media can turn to humor, and there are all these fun memes that just make light of a really hard situation. And so I had to share my favorite one with you, which is, it was a picture and the words on it were, "I can't wait for things to get back to COVID normal." And I just totally related to that because after being so freaking cold and wondering how my family was going to warm up, I was literally thinking, I can't wait to get back to just like normal everyday life, which does include a pandemic and masks, but that didn't even matter. I wanted to feel some sort of normal. So anyway, I'm just so happy to be in a warm home right now, kicking off this podcast and my interview with Dafne. So I'll get to that in just a quick minute. She is so amazing. And when I talked with her, it was the perfect timing because as a parent in the throes of preschool meltdowns and the kindergarten adjustment, I really needed someone to tell me that when I lose my cool with my kids, I'm not going to ruin them forever. Does anyone ever feel like that? It's like you lose your cool. We're not going to be great all the time, right? We're going to say things we don't mean. We're going to raise our voices. And it's like, oh crap, did I just, teach him the worst behavior ever? And that's all he's going to do. Like she just totally was like, girl, I have older kids. You're going to be okay. Not every situation is going to affect the rest of their life. I'm like, okay, thank you. It's like I rationally know that. And I know that the connection and the emotion and coming back from those things are what's important. But when you're in it and you're like arguing with your 5-year-old, it feels like, you're just totally screwing up as a parent. But we're not, okay, y'all? She attests to that as she has 3 young adult children who are just thriving. And so they're pretty amazing. So parenting is hard, and I'm with you on that. And parenting is extremely hard when you have a young toddler. And listen to me when I say toddler diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. For those of you who don't know about type 1, it requires a strict diet, lots of math, surprisingly, and life adjustments and hundreds and thousands of sugar checks and insulin shots over a lifetime. Like, imagine that with a toddler. It just is, it's so, so hard. So, Daphne talks a lot about that with us today. She talks about how her daughter has struggled with an autoimmune condition or disease, and how she's taken those, challenges within her family and actually turned them into passion projects, which lead her to the work that she's doing now. And she helps coach and helps other families going through similar stresses. So, enough of me. Let's get to Daphne. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
I am married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together for 27 years and we have 3 kids. They're not really kids anymore. They're 2 boys and a girl. So 24, 19, and the youngest will be 18 in June. So They really are all adults, which feels weird for me to say.
Yeah.
We were born and raised outside of Houston and lived there our entire lives, raised our kids there. We actually live outside of San Antonio now, but we didn't move here until our oldest was, he had just turned 18. So we've been here 5.5 years, absolutely love it and miss our family, of course. But yeah, we just, our kids are, I don't know what else to say about them except they're amazing. And when they start turning into adults, you're like, I think maybe I did some things right when the whole time I was questioning myself. So for anyone listening who has little ones and is always double thinking or overthinking what they're doing, like, it's okay. If you care that much about it, then you're probably doing an amazing job. So yeah, my kids are
that's so comforting. Because I am literally where you're talking about now. My kids are 2 and 5, and it's like every little decision, I'm like, did I respond to him okay? Like all of this. And so you're telling me it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Yes, I know. I actually just made a Facebook post, my personal wall yesterday, because my oldest just accepted a position as a software engineer. And I'm like, how do I have a child old enough to have like a real adult job with benefits and a salary and everything? It's so great. We homeschooled all the way through. I left that part out. So we homeschooled, well, almost all the way through. They went to public school a couple of years. Lots of reasons for that. A lot of them because of illness and doctor's appointments. And like, anyway, so, yeah, even the homeschool moms who might be listening, like, you're not messing up. It's gonna be okay. Like, the little things that we sweat every day really don't matter when it comes to the big picture.
Gosh, I know. Well, it's so good to hear that, especially like, in the midst of a pandemic when there is just so much togetherness time.
That's true.
It's good to hear.
It's true. Yeah, I know. I feel for so many people right now because what are those memes circulating that says something like, oh, is this quarantine? This is just my everyday life. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so us, because this is what we've been doing forever. Like, we're home, we're learning, we're together, we're cooking, we're like, that's just how we have lived. And so, I mean, of course, a lot of people think homeschoolers never go anywhere, have any socialization, and that's not true. We're always doing all kinds of clubs and classes and stuff like that. But yeah, everyone at home with the togetherness, it's an adjustment, but it's good.
Oh, for sure. Well, and as you know, my son is a kindergartner, and just the amazement I have at homeschool moms. I think we all just have this whole new appreciation for how much it goes into actually homeschooling and finding a rhythm and getting a routine and the coursework and supporting your child. So it's a lot. It's intense. It's a whole other podcast episode.
That's right. Yeah, it's a roller coaster for sure.
Well, why don't you start off and talk to us about your family and your kiddos and who we're going to be talking about today? I think we're going to be talking about all 3. Is that correct?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see what we get to.
Yeah, they all have different things. And I always like to say, like, there's not... My youngest 2 will argue about who has it worst. I'm like, y'all are the worst. Like, don't argue about which one of you has it worst. Like, you both have really bad stuff going on, and there's no comparing apples to oranges.
Totally.
The oldest doesn't have it as bad, but yeah. So I'll just go in chronological order. How about that? Just give like a brief synopsis of what they're all dealing with. The youngest, so it's chronological order of the diagnoses, not their ages. The youngest was diagnosed when he was 2 years old, and his diagnosis is type 1 diabetes. And so many people don't know anything about type 1 diabetes because the media is always talking about type 2 and the the commercials and the, diet stuff, all that's about type 2. And type 1 is basically your body thinks that your pancreas is a foreign object. It starts attacking it. You stop producing insulin. Insulin is a hormone that you need to live. Like there is no diet plan, exercise plan, anything that can keep you healthy and alive if you don't have insulin in your body. So that means an injection every time you eat or drink anything that has a carbohydrate. It's not sugar, it's a carbohydrate. So if you have a healthy apple or a spoon of peanut butter or anything that has a carbohydrate, you count it, you do some math to figure out how much insulin you need, which is always a guessing game and it's always changing as they grow. It's never the same. Even adults, once they've fully grown, there's so many things that impact how you regulate blood sugar, exercise, stress, just being excited about something. Like we'll go on vacation and elevation will impact it. We didn't know that. We went to Pikes Peak just a couple of years ago and we were all so excited to get to the top of Pikes Peak. Well, we live at sea level and even being in Colorado, his numbers were a little different, but get to Pikes Peak and it's really hard to even enjoy it because he's just vomiting, his blood sugar is crashing, all these crazy things are happening. And so it's every minute of every day you're monitoring this thing to keep your kid alive. That's type 1. My daughter was diagnosed when she was 10. So it was a couple of years, 5 or 6 years later, I think. She has 2 different forms of juvenile arthritis. So she's got psoriatic arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis. And both of those can be adult also. Adults have those things. But yeah, she got diagnosed when she was 10. And poor thing, I have a history of rheumatoid arthritis, which I don't have now. I've been free from for 10 years. That's crazy. Another story. Yes, I know.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it made me feel so bad because when she started having all these symptoms and pain and just complaining about not wanting to, sit certain ways or be on her, just do things that kids do, get up and down from the ground and climb trees or ride her bike. I was like, what is going on? Like, she's so cranky and she's always complaining and why can't she just enjoy her life? Like, she's a little kid. Let's play. Come on, have fun. Like, quit crying. And so a little bit of mom guilt I've had to get over from all that because it took about it probably took about 3 years of that counseling. I was taking her to counseling thinking she had some kind of mood or emotional thing going on, and finally found out that she had those 2 really can be debilitating autoimmune forms of arthritis. And so she's on treatments for that. We go for an infusion every month, and had a doctor tell us when I think she was 15, when a doctor was like, you're going to be crippled by the time you're 20. And I was like, okay, we're never going to. Yes. It was the first time it was actually when we moved here, because we moved from Houston where we had an excellent care team, moved to San Antonio. This doctor was the first time we'd ever seen him. He was highly recommended. Like when I look for physicians, I'm not just picking somebody out of my insurance plan. I'm like, okay, who do you know? Tell me what you love about them. I'm really big about finding great care teams for my kids. And the people recommended this doctor, and then we had this terrible experience. And when I went back and told them, I was like, oh my God, they couldn't believe that he had acted that way and said that. But he was really gruff the entire appointment, and you're going to be crippled by the time you're 20, and just all. I was like, why would you say that to my 15-year-old child and put her in tears? And there's just no reason for that.
No.
So
when especially it's not true.
It's not. I mean, it happens. You can't deny that. People have things like that happen, and it's really sad. And I mean, that's always but don't, you could have pulled me aside as the mom and said, listen, here's the reality of the prognosis, and this is what's going on. And she's 15, but give somebody some warning that that's what's about to come out of your mouth. I just didn't think that was okay. They're not emotionally, or I think they're just not ready to handle hearing. Nobody wants to ever hear that, right?
Oh, of course not.
Yeah. So found a new care team in Austin that we absolutely love. Yeah, we drive 2.5 hours one way for her visits there once a month, which is totally worth it. So yeah, that's her story. We're still battling some things with all that for sure. And then my oldest, his thing isn't as severe. Like there's no threat of being crippled or, minute to minute monitoring or anything like that. And we never actually really got a formal diagnosis, but he has dealt with sensory processing disorder his entire life. And I never knew what that was. I thought he was
Mm-hmm.
just the pickiest eater alive and had to have the same exact pair of shorts from J.C. Penney's because he was just a weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
And I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea
Yeah.
about, you know, any of that stuff. And also having to get over a little mom guilt because the other two were dealing with things that were life threatening and
Right.
potentially crippling.
Right.
I'm like, okay, here, eat your chicken nuggets, even though like you should really be having some greens right now, but he wouldn't touch, beans have skin and what fruit, he wouldn't eat fruit. Apples have, even if you peeled and chopped and whatever with the apple, no, that has a skin and just different
Yeah.
things with texture of
Yeah.
foods. And anyway, so we didn't really realize how big of an issue that was until because we just dealt with it. It's like, well, eat what he'll eat so he doesn't starve and buy him the shorts that he'll wear so that he's not freezing and whatever we had to do to keep him comfortable. But when he was 17 and thinking about going to college and all of these different things, it was he just was terrified. He was like, I can't go live somewhere else. I don't want to be. And none of that had anything to do with homeschooling because he actually was more social and more talkative and more comfortable around people when we pulled him out of the public school environment. That's actually one of the
Mm.
reasons we started homeschooling because we had a doctor say like, I think we're going to have to diagnose him with selective mutism. Like I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
what?
Yeah.
No. So we pulled him out of school, which everyone thought was crazy because they were like, well, he needs to be social. I'm like, you don't get to be social. Like you're sitting in a class and you're not allowed to talk and you only get to like he needs to be out in the real world where he's socializing with adults and other kids like for real, for real. That's how I felt. Like if we go to the park and he sees this kid and he wants to play with him, he might not be at the park the next day. Whereas if you're in kindergarten class, that kid might be there the next day and you could have 6 months to build up the courage. Well, you don't have time. Go talk to that kid right now and play with him.
Oh, well, and it's like if you have some sort of learning difference in any way or sensory processing difference, the amount of energy that it takes to get through what for typical kids, quote unquote, is just so much more. So he may not have even had the energy to socialize because he was trying to just deal with his environment. And so it's
I
like you take
so
him out and keep him at home. It makes complete sense that
Yes.
he would be more social.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad that you understand that because there were so many people in our circle who just thought we were being lazy parents and
Mm.
not disciplining enough and just let him starve if he doesn't eat what you cook. And I was
Yeah.
like, you just don't get it. That's not going to work. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's not going to work. And so, anyways, what was my original point? Okay, so when he was 17 is when we finally were like, okay, you have to be able to function in the real world. You've done great. Like he led robotics teams and he did all kinds of really cool things with his homeschool school experience that were a lot of fun. He played baseball, did all kinds of stuff. But then when it was like, go go by yourself, drive yourself to get your hair cut, or go to the bank yourself and withdraw money from your account, or just normal things that he was going to need to do to be a functioning adult, he would feel paralyzed. So
Mm.
that's when we realized, like, wow, maybe we should have been getting him help for this a while ago. And found an amazing occupational therapist here in San Antonio that he really only needed to go a couple times, maybe because he was older. And so taught him a few things that he needed to know and started putting some things into practice for himself. And so now he's done with college, got his job, was voted most valuable programmer by his class. Like,
Oh my
he's
gosh.
good. He's
That's
good. Yeah.
amazing. Well, you sound
Yeah.
like you have amazing kiddos. Oh my gosh.
I love
Um,
them.
well, let's go back to your son that was diagnosed at 2 with
Mhm.
diabetes. And, it's crazy to me. I think you're going to be my 60th episode, and I have yet to interview a parent of a child with diabetes. And it's one of the more common chronic illnesses we see in not common, but within the hospital setting.
Really?
So I would
Oh,
love for
sad.
you to kind of talk to the listeners about, you explained what diabetes is, but talk about what it's like to get a 2-year-old to eat what you want them to eat and get shots all of the time. Like, how do you even begin to navigate that?
Yeah. Okay, I can talk about that. I I will say that it's hard. It's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, anyone who has a 2-year-old knows that getting a 2-year-old to eat sometimes can be hard. And
Mm-hmm.
one day they love string cheese and the next day they hate it. I mean, that's just how they are. And so typically with diabetes, what you want to do is give someone insulin before they eat because the insulin needs to, like in a normal person's body, when you start to feel hungry, your pancreas starts to release insulin so that when you start to eat, it's already ready to
Mm-hmm.
break down everything that it needs to break down and that's how that process works. And so in a person who needs insulin injections, it's best to do it before they eat so that then the insulin is working before the carbohydrates enter the bloodstream. That doesn't work with 2-year-olds because you can't, you don't know what they're going to eat. And insulin is the one medication, if you work in a hospital setting, you know that insulin is the only drug that one nurse can't go and give, right? Like it has to be two nurses checking the dosages to make sure that it's right. Well, parents of kids with type 1, we don't have nurses double checking us and we're running on really, really little sleep because when my son was diagnosed, there was, oh, technology has come such a long way. But when he was diagnosed, the protocol was like, well, wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure his number's level. And if it is, you can go back to sleep. And if it's not, then you need to do X, Y, and Z. And so I say we, my husband worked out of town 6 weeks at a time. So this was me. I was doing
Mm.
this. Um, in the midst of me battling my rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh
I
gosh.
get up at 2 o'clock. And not even, sometimes I wouldn't even get up until 2 o'clock, get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would just stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning because I was so afraid that if I
Mm-hmm.
went to sleep and set an alarm, I wasn't going to hear it. I wasn't going to wake up because I was exhausted myself. And so I would just stay up until that 2 o'clock hour to check his blood sugar. And then at that point, do whatever treatment needed to be done. But with our son, he has this kind of rare, what I'm learning is rare in the community because I didn't know that. But this rare thing called hypoglycemic unawareness, where a lot of kids and adults with type 1, if their blood sugar starts to get low while they're sleeping, they'll wake up and they're like, I feel shaky. I feel like I need to eat something, whatever. He doesn't. And I mean, from 2 until he's almost 18, he does not wake up and
Mm-hmm.
he does not feel it. He will sleep himself into a coma.
Mm.
And so I checked his blood sugar. I stayed up until 2 and checked it. And then if he needed a correction or if he needed a snack or whatever it was, I dealt with that. And the rule is 15 carbs, wait 15 minutes, check it again. And then 15 carbs, wait 15 minutes, and then check it again. And so sometimes I'd be up until 4 and then
Oh.
try and squeeze in a little nap and then check it again. And then more carbs or more insulin and then another little nap and then check it again. And I did that for 7 years before the technology world came out with this wonderful device called a Dexcom
Mm. Oh
that
my gosh.
that he wears on his body 24/7. It checks his blood sugar every 5 minutes and it sends an alert to my watch and my phone if he's getting to a dangerous number. So, but as a 2-year-old, I'll go back to your question. As a 2-year-old, trying to get him to eat, it was nearly impossible. And so what would happen was we would I would do the best that I could. Like, okay, this is what he's going to eat, and then after he ate is when I would measure and calculate and give him the insulin dose. And what that would result in a lot of times was a really high blood sugar because he'd already eaten. The insulin didn't have time to work, and so he'd have a really high blood sugar. And so we keep all these records. We go back to the endocrinologist, and they're like, I'm like, he needs an insulin pump because for anyone who doesn't know about insulin injections, the syringes that they give you, you measure in half units. And sometimes because he was so little and because his insulin needs were so small, he would need like 0.275 units, which you
Mm-hmm.
can't measure in a syringe. But if you give them too much insulin, they're going to crash dangerously low. If you don't, so it was like this horrible roller
Oh
coaster of
my gosh.
food and insulin and math, which I never was good at in school. So I'm really good at math now, really
Yeah.
good, because when I had to learn it really well to save my son's life, I was like, oh, I'm going to understand these calculations. But so we would go back to the endocrinologist and say he needs an insulin pump, and they would say, well, he can't get an insulin pump until his blood sugar's better controlled. And I would say, well, how am I supposed to get it in better control if I can't get the dosing right because I can't measure it in the, you can't draw that up in a
Yeah.
syringe. You can't see that.
Right.
And that's what he needs because this is what he ate, you know. And so the first 6 months of his diagnosis, I was adamant that he was going to be on an insulin pump because we needed better control. And the only way for us to get better control was to be able to give these micro doses that you could program into the pump. And so it took me, I'm just saying this because you know, for anyone out there who has had an endocrinologist, if they're listening, say you can't get the pump for 6 months or a year, which is common, I think, in a lot of communities I've seen. Just you fight for it because I had to fight for it. 6 months. We went to I don't know how many different endocrinologists, and we were at Texas Children's. I don't know if you know anything about that, but it's an amazing hospital in Houston. Really,
Right.
really good reputation. And I went through every endocrinologist there, and they wouldn't approve it. And I finally left Texas Children's and went somewhere else because I had to find an endocrinologist who was going to listen to what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because none of those doctors had a kid with type 1. You might have gone to medical school, but you're not living this life every day.
Oh
And
gosh, no,
and
they're not up at 2 a.m. checking a sleeping toddler. No, no, no.
yeah, or chasing them around the house while they're
Yeah.
screaming and asking you, "When's it their turn? When's it their turn?" Pointing to their brother and sister because I'm
Yeah.
holding him down and I'm hurting him in his mind. You know, he had
Yeah.
no idea. You can't explain to a 2-year-old why you're doing what you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't see me doing it to the others, and that didn't make any sense to him, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, sorry, was that a long answer to your
No,
question?
it was a really good answer because it makes me think of if there's any healthcare professionals or students looking to go into a medical profession, this is just complete evidence that the parent is actually the expert on the
Yes,
child. And so,
yes,
like, making parents a part of the care team has to be a part of it. I mean,
has to.
you know,
It has to.
there's just no other way about it. It's like you're the most integral part of this
Hmm.
care team. And
Yeah.
what you said about the exhaustion, it's like residents and healthcare professionals who go through all of this training and they're so tired because they're doing 12 on, 12 off, you know, 18 on. I mean, parents are 24/7 on, no ifs and buts about it. And if
Yeah.
they do get a night off thanks to a babysitter or a blessed family member, they're still on call.
Yeah.
You know,
Which doesn't
so
that's the one thing with type 1 too is like I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's the other thing is finding someone brave enough to do what I just described doing because they know that if they get it wrong, something really tragic could happen to your child is next to impossible. Thank
right.
God I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me and so she was young when my son was diagnosed, 17 when my son was diagnosed. And she was just all about learning how to help take care of
Amazing.
him. And she lived with us for a little while when she was in college, and I'm just so grateful for her. But you know, other than her, like even grandparents and aunts and uncles, it was like they people were terrified.
They're
They were like,
overwhelmed too. Yeah. They
yeah,
don't want to
I
mess
don't
it
want to mess
up
it up.
and
Yeah,
mhm.
exactly. I don't want to mess it up. So just think about like you just want to go to dinner with your husband. Just 2 hours. Just let me have 2 hours. Just 2 hours to
I
invest in my
know.
marriage, please. And you try that and it's okay. But I'll never forget getting a call from my oldest son on one of those times, and he was whoever I won't call out the person who was watching my son at that time, but someone who really loved him and wanted to take care of him, but you know, he was having a low blood sugar and they panicked and just gave him snack after snack after snack without following that 15-15 rule. So then his blood sugar was going dangerously high and so my oldest called me and was like, they're not listening. That I'm trying to tell them what they need. And he was like 14 at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me talk to them, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Um, I'd love to talk also about your daughter, and so she was diagnosed at the age of 10,
Yes.
with probably something that none of her peers had. You know, your son as well, right? Like
Right.
nobody really in your community as a
No.
10-year-old has anything like this. How did
Right.
you explain to her what was happening in her body, and then what are some of the things she did to help take care of herself?
Wow, good question. I think that explaining to her what was happening in her body may have been a little bit easier because I had experience with something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if a parent hasn't, like, even with my husband now, it's like he's never experienced anything like that. So when I'm trying to explain to him, like, this is why she's feeling exhausted, da, 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 da. This is why she's cranky today. This is why, it's like when you've been through it, you kind of know what they're going through. And so when we got the diagnoses, I almost felt relief. I know that sounds terrible to say, but it's like
It
when
does
you're trying to
not.
figure, it's like when you've been trying to figure it out for so long and then you finally have a concrete answer, then it's like, okay, now we can take some action and we know what we need to do with this. And so I just explained to her basically in layman's terms what the doctor said, that this is, you're going to need XYZ treatment. And of course they don't ever, they're not always really big about nutrition, and I am. And so they're telling her the medical protocol, and I'm like, okay, and this is what we're going to do for your nutrition if you're on board. And so she has done my kids are great eaters. Like they're really, people are usually surprised at the things that they'll eat, even from a young age, because it's just something that's been important. And so just teaching her different things that could be causing inflammation in her body, and then I wanted her to learn how to pay attention to those signals. And so we worked through like food journaling and emotions and pain points. And are you feeling more inflamed, less inflamed? Like I walked her through different elimination plans. And anyway, so, and a lot of that came from my own process and my own journey. And so I was really kind of grateful at that point that I had walked through that, so that then I had the resources and tools to walk her through that. And I wish I could say that it has been as successful for her as it was for me, but I'll also say she's not as diligent.
Right.
Even at 19, it's like
Oh,
she wants
compliance
to
is, yeah, it's
she
tough.
wants to have pizza when she gets together with her
Of
friends. And
course. Yeah.
so, yeah. So, pizza's not bad all the time, but come on, let's pay attention. And so anyway, yes, we had lots of conversations about, we have a lot of mental health conversations too. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking today? What are you believing about your body, about what your life is going to look like in 5 years? Because I tell people all the time that I feel like the worst symptom of any chronic illness is hopelessness. And thankfully, there's a cure for that. Like, we can change the way that we think, we can change what we believe about our prognosis, and that really impacts how we behave.
Oh, I totally agree. Well, I guess that kind of moves me on to you then. And I'd love for you to share some of the things you do to take care of yourself as the caregiver, the parent, the one, who really feels, it's the expression that when you have a child, your heart is beating outside of your body. And when they go through pain, you also feel it for them and for you.
Yes.
It's a really hard experience to be a parent watching your child go through something. So what are some
Yes.
strategies you've used to take care of yourself?
Okay. Is it okay if I kind of like, I'm going to share a couple different ones because I feel like that has changed
Yes,
as they've grown. And so like
please.
when they were little is
Yes.
different than it is now. Okay. So when they were little, big thing that I would do is I gave myself permission to cry. So I know that doesn't sound like self-care, but I didn't want to hold in. I just feel like it's not good for our bodies to hold in all that junk. And so but I never wanted to do it in front of them. I didn't want them to see me because I didn't ever want them to feel like they were causing my sadness. Does that make sense? I don't think it's wrong to cry in front of your kids. And sure, I probably did sometimes, but like those episodes I was talking about where I'd have to chase my son around the house and then hold him down forcefully and give him his insulin, like that ripped my heart out. And so after that, I would always get my older two kids like, okay, y'all play with them. Here, we're going to have this game. It's going to be fun. And y'all are going to, whatever it was, I wanted them to be having lots of fun. And I would literally go to my room and shut myself in and just bawl my eyes out. Like, just,
Yeah.
just give me 5 minutes to bawl my eyes out that my son's life is so unfair and he's so little and he shouldn't have to be doing this and I shouldn't have to be doing this. And, I'd spend a little time praying, getting my thoughts back right, and then wipe my face off and I was good to go. That was a big part of my self-care. I think it's good to release those things. So the other thing I did when they were little is, so like I said, I was dealing with my own, I had two different diagnoses. And so I had my own stuff plus theirs. And this is going to sound really silly, but the laundry would sometimes be so overwhelming that I was like, I'm not doing this. And I
Mm-hmm.
can remember like the day that I decided I wasn't going to do the laundry anymore. And I was like, I'm going to find people who's going to do my laundry. Somebody's going to do my laundry. Like I was determined. Well, I never knew until that point that I could call a local, what do you call it? Like a dry cleaner place. And they
Uh-huh.
had wash and fold services. And I could go dump off my laundry. And it was like 50 cents a pound. Or I think I spent like 40 or $50 like every 10 days. I would just pile it all in my car in my laundry baskets,
Yeah.
take it down there. In 2 hours, they'd call me back. Your laundry's ready to be picked up. It was folded. It was on hangers. Everything. I'm talking sheets, towels, everybody's
Yeah.
clothes. I was like, here, here.
You're like, this
And
is the best money I have spent.
yes, well, because back then Instacart wasn't around, so I couldn't get my groceries. It's like, what can
Yeah.
I outsource?
Right.
So I think doing some outsourcing, people spend so much money on all kinds of things. If anyone's listening, like, I can't afford that. Yes, you can. Stop going
Mm-hmm.
to Starbucks. Stop. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, let me get some financial tips here. Like
Yeah.
you could make it work somehow. Um,
Oh, I love that you are mentioning this because I think parents need permission sometimes to do this
yes,
kind of stuff. Like it doesn't actually have to all be on you. When you're
yes,
navigating so much, get rid of what you can get rid of. It's a way of
yeah.
asking for help, really.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's hard. It's hard, right? Because why do we feel like society says we have to, you know, to be the great mom, you have, look what
Mm,
the Pinterest
mm-hmm.
stuff drives me nuts sometimes. I'm like,
I
that is
know.
not real life. That's a really cute recipe or like those little bento boxes. I think that's when those became popular was around that time. It would make me
Mm-hmm.
mad. Every time I'd see a Pinterest mom with her bento box, I just wanted to say cuss words, which I don't usually do. And
Yeah,
so I
I
was like,
know.
I mean, no, those are good things. I'm glad that there are people out there inspiring people to do that. That's
Yeah,
important work too, right? But I'm just
right,
saying, as a mom who was like barely holding my stuff together
right.
to see, so don't compare yourself. That's the other thing. Like, don't compare
Yeah,
yourself to anyone else because we all have different struggles. We all have different journeys. That's a big part of self care is like, you're not a bad mom because you're not packing your kids' bento boxes with notes in every school lunch. Like, you kept
right.
them alive. Okay, great job.
You did it.
Great job.
Yeah.
You did it. Yes. Like, and
Yeah.
you washed your hair today and you're presentable for the world. Like you are on fire.
Yep. Amazing.
So,
Sometimes, and I'm, I don't have kiddos with chronic illness, but even just as a mom, I'll be like talking to my husband and be like, do you want to hear all the things I did today? Because I'm really feeling like I need to say them out loud. Like you just
yes.
need a little bit of like praise the small stuff, say what you did out loud. None of it was groundbreaking, but it got us through to where we are now. And sometimes you just
Right.
need a little feedback that you're doing okay.
Yes, exactly. I know. Well, and think of all the things that we carry around in our brains as moms. Like, I think if we wrote someone else out a list of all the things that we're constantly thinking about that really need to get done in our homes, in our work, with our kids, like people be overwhelmed just looking at the list that's floating around in our brain.
Oh, totally. Like, do you want to know where our dental insurance card is from 2018? Because I could tell
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I know.
Exactly. Yeah. So other things I did for self-care were there was an amazing mom in a homeschool group that we were a part of, and I had 3 kids. She had 4 kids. Her kids didn't have any chronic illnesses, but she was willing to learn how to deal with my kids and theirs. And so every other Friday we did a kid swap. And so 2 Fridays
Amazing.
a month, I had 4 hours all to myself. Like
Amazing.
also, of course, that meant the other 2 Fridays I had 7 kids in my house because I had
Right.
all of hers and mine, but it was totally worth it. So if don't want to hire a babysitter or a nanny or whatever it is, do find somebody who will do a kid swap with you
Mm-hmm.
because that was, I mean, life changing. I could go get a manicure, I
Mm-hmm.
could take a nap, I could whatever I wanted to do, go have coffee with someone, whatever I wanted to do. And
That's so great.
yes, that was a really big deal. And I usually made a point to like, at that point my son had his insulin pump, which made it so much easier because then they could call and I could be like, okay, he needs to press these buttons and he knew how to man all that stuff. And so it was fabulous.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that. And how has your self care changed to where you are now? And I am curious, obviously, if it's part of your passion and your company right now and your coaching, what you're doing.
Oh yeah. Yes, it is. Part of my self-care now is I make sure that I'm very intentional about how I nurture myself. So what I mean by that is I'm paying attention to whether my body is getting enough rest, because I spent so many years where I really didn't get that. And and so I'm able to rest more now, and I want to do that fully. And that even feels hard. Like when you're growing a business and serving people and you care so much about helping people, like
Mm-hmm.
setting really clear boundaries with clients and friends and everybody that's outside of my inner circle is really important to me, because I I know what I need to conserve my own energy and to be able to say yes to the things in my life that really matter right now. Like this podcast interview. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to rest. I need to get up at a certain time. I need to make sure that my juice is ready to go in the morning. Like I do some juicing, and so just things like that, making sure that my schedule is is conducive to
Mm-hmm.
rest and to working and planning. And you can't always, things go haywire, right, and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But my husband's home now. He doesn't go out of town for 6 weeks at a time anymore, which is really important for both of us and we love, so that he's able to, like my son had to go to work right before this interview started. And so I'm like, well, you know that you're on for that today because I've got this, and this going on. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's asking for help too, right? Like even though we're married and they're his kids too, it's like
Mm-hmm.
letting people know what my schedule is, so that they can be respecting that time that I've set aside for different things.
Mm-hmm.
Eating really nutritious foods, like that takes time and planning, and I'm worth it. Like I'm worth that. And so that's part of my self-care, making time to move my body, whether it's a walk or some type of workout or whatever that is. Like that is really refreshing. I love to spend time in nature, and that's where I do a lot of my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so just making space and time to sit outside and listen to the birds or the wind and write, and just feel alive. Like that, just nobody's calling me,
Mm-hmm.
leave my phone somewhere where I'm not going to hear it if it makes a sound, and
Yeah.
I, all that.
It's
So,
so centering when you're in nature, and I found that too. I think you've, at least I did. I saw it more as I get older,
yes.
and just like literally being outside can
Yes,
turn
the
a day
sunlight on
around.
your face. Yes,
Yeah.
I know. My mom actually laughs now because she's like, "Oh my gosh, I could never get you outside when you were a kid." Like
Right.
I was the one who was always like, "No, I have homework. I can't go outside, and I have to read this book, and I have to write this paper." I hated being outside. I didn't want to dig in the dirt or do any of the things that she loved to do. And now I'm like, Mom, look, I trimmed my rose bushes, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm like loving that we live on 2 acres here, and so we're always doing something outside. And I love going on hikes. And every
Mm-hmm.
vacation we take is usually some experience in nature. Like we're not theme park people, and there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong with theme parks, but we just really love seeing the
Yeah.
creation. So
I love it.
yeah.
So, if you could recommend some resources for parents who are going through either kiddos with chronic illness or um, starting to navigate healthcare, juggling all of it, what are some things that worked for you and what resources do you recommend?
Well, first of all, I would say find a community of people who know what you're dealing with. But a good community of people,
Mm-hmm.
like a positive community of people, because there are tons of like quote unquote support groups out there, and
Mm-hmm.
really all it is a let's get together and talk about how unfair our life is, and how my symptoms are worse than yours, and how I have it worse than you, and how I mean I
Yeah,
just
it can get
ugh
messy for sure.
stay away from those. So
Mm-hmm.
find communities where people are encouraging and motivating and educating. I have a great community that I found, because actually when my kids were diagnosed and they were little, all I could find were the first type of community that I just talked
Mm-hmm.
about, and I just couldn't handle it. So I just got out of all of them, and I felt so alone. Like I felt so alone and frustrated and overwhelmed for a long time. And then I found a really amazing community for type 1 parents. And just, man, they'll really wrap their arms around you. And it's sad to see it grow. That's the one thing, it's like
Mm-hmm.
when you're at 6,000 people when you start, and then a few years later you're at 15,000, and you're like, I mean, it's sad, but thank God we're here, right? Because we
Right.
all, we all when somebody at 3:00 in the morning is like, I don't know what to do, and the on-call doctor won't call me back, somebody else is going to be awake and in that group to say, look, it's going to be okay. And here's what I would do if I was in your shoes. It's not medical advice, if it's something
Right.
really sick. But I mean, sometimes there's really urgent stuff and you can't get a hold of a doctor. But if you could get in touch with another parent who's been doing it for 15 years, they might have some advice that they could share with you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so that eases a lot of stress, I think, for new parents. And I think that'd be my top thing. Find an amazing community.
I love that. And would you tell us a bit about your book and what you've done and how people can either connect with you or reach out to you or follow along with you?
Yes. Okay. So my official title is the Chronic Illness Coach because I help people navigate life with chronic illness, whether it's in themselves or in their kids. It's something we've been doing for almost 20 years now. And so I love the work I get to do and helping people just change their mind about what they have going on and really learn how to advocate for themselves at their doctor's office, how to find a doctor that's going to not say things like, you're going to be crippled by the time you're 20. Because curating a good care team is so important. And so, yeah, I love the work I get to do. And my book is called Breakthrough, and it's a devotional kind of. So it just takes people on a journey of, I share bits and pieces of my own story of battling rheumatoid arthritis and then being set free from that. And it's actually my clients who asked me to write it out because they were like, how did you do it? And it's not a technical journey. It was a spiritual and a nutritional journey where I had to change what I was thinking and what I was saying and what I was doing. And so this book guides people on that journey. And it doesn't, obviously, I'm not saying like, if you read my book, you're going to be healed from whatever it is you're dealing with. No, I can never promise that. But it does help people just reframe their brains because, like I said before, I think the worst symptom of any chronic illness is hopelessness. And this book is designed to restore people's hope that no matter what you're facing, there's still joy, there's still laughter, there's still peace, there's still beauty in this life that you have to live. Just the last thing I'd like to say to anyone listening is that no matter how alone you feel or how overwhelmed you feel or how devastated you feel by anything that you might be facing, just don't believe that lie. You're not alone and you don't have to live overwhelmed. And there are wonderful people out there who want to encourage you and cheer you on and give you practical wisdom from their own journeys. And so find those people because they're going to just wrap their arms around you.
Oh, I love that. Yep. Find your people. It's what it's all about.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dafne. I really appreciate it and really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. Me too. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much to Dafne as well for being here. And you can go find her and her book at Dafne, WISWELL.com. Thanks so much for being here, Dafne. We really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.